I'd like to shift into the future. So let's design the perfect GDPR. Where are we going with this? Or, if you want to be cynical, the nightmare outcome. So, but what direction? Where are we going to end up on this? Well, let's start on your side and move back, Chris.
Again, to I think it was your point earlier, I think this is version 1.0. I think it's going to be a lot like Privacy Shield, a lot like Safe Harbor, where people are like, all right, we need to reevaluate this. Again, I don't think it's going to get less strict, but I do think as we kind of see the difference between this is the epitome and this is what it should look like versus what organizations are truly capable of, I think we might see a little bit of relaxing of some of the requirements.
I'm seeing some horror at some of the data practices that, if you look at some of the surprises that
100%.
that we've seen. So I think the pendulum is swinging towards consumers wanting more and more privacy. At the same time, they do want the convenience of maybe getting $1 off a pound of bananas when they go to the grocery store, and be, giving some personal information in order to get that.
Do you think that's true in the U.S. as well, or do you think it's EU-based?
The horror?
The wanting more privacy.
I actually think in the EU or in the U.S. we're seeing a shift towards huge reputational damage. If you look at the numbers of approvals for example, Facebook, for some of the things that have come out over the last couple of months, the approval rating has plummeted, and so they've got to re-engage and re-earn some trust, I think, for that to come back up. And I think if you look at millennials in the U.S., the surveys I'm seeing is that they do very much value privacy, and they selectively give it up, and they take it back when they want to.
Fair point.
So I do think we're in a bit of a change. I
agree. I was talking to Chris Dale last night, and we were just talking about it was a different topic of conversation about how people, when they're asked to live if they want to live in any era in history, where would they, when would they choose, and he was saying, I'm addicted to the internet, I need that information at my fingertips. And it got me thinking, I don't know, maybe the cost is too much. Maybe I'm just being nostalgic, but sometimes I kind of wish that I was a little bit more off the grid. And I think that's where you're kind of heading towards, is we became so enraptured with the convenience of so many different things, and now we're realizing the costs. And I think that there is a bit of a pushback in the States, a trend that people are starting to feel okay, some of this is a bit too much. Some of the targeted ads that know me better than I want them to know me. Some of these other things, how secure is my data? And then there's, like you mentioned, Facebook, but there's also these, Amanda talked about, other folks have talked about these chain attacks where blockchain attacks target and other corporations where, they're very, my family doesn't, Target is basically a department store with groceries and a bunch of other things in the States. And we go there several times a week. The idea that one day they announced that millions of people's credit card information had been inadvertently released. That's terrifying, right? And so I think that's my take. I'm jumping in as moderator to pontificate for a second, but I'm basically agreeing with you in a much longer version. Go ahead.
So we did a piece of research where we surveyed 7,500 people globally, looking at where was the line where organizations can cross, where it becomes they feel like their privacy is being invaded. So we posed scenarios such as you're driving down the road one day and the billboard on the right-hand side changes and serves you an advert with your name on it and gives you an offer for the breakfast cereal you're eating this morning. Is this crossing the line or not? Okay. So 80% of people in the UK said it was creepy and crossing the line, didn't like it. 60% of Chinese people thought it was really cool. Okay, so there is a huge cultural dynamic of it, but some of the really interesting stats were 85% of people felt they had less than sufficient control over their personal information. Okay, so pretty much across the board. You saw slight variance in markets. The other interesting thing was people would make a sensible, conscious decision to give up their right to privacy for a discount on a product. So one of the scenarios in that was a discount on a television that got more and more discount as the increased monitoring took place on that TV, all the way up to free television. You can track every single button click. Which country do you think was most likely to take that television? Okay, Finland. Okay, so a lot of the things you expect around privacy don't actually come out the way you expect them to based on culture and background.
Jennifer.
The way I see the world is moving is that data is now a commodity, that it's actually, you can pay with your data rather than pay with money. And everybody's doing it, but I'm not sure that they've realized that that's actually what's going on. So that's one thing. And the second thing I would say about the GDPR of the future, the one we hope, I would like a lot more nuance in there, because I think it's all very black and white. It's all very childlike, in a way. It's like a child growing up, everything is good or bad. But what about the in-between, the real life? Like you were saying, how can you be sure that everything has been deleted? Well, you can only pray that, at some point. And it's not because you've taken all the reasonable precautions. I think the problem is, there's nothing about reasonableness in there. Nothing about proportionality.
Fair enough. Nothing about reasonableness.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think it's like a child. It's black or white.
It's very
It needs to
strict
grow up a
liability.
bit,
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing you can hope is that you educate the people enough, but educating them,
Yeah.
to your point, you can educate the senior business leaders, but to somebody on the ground, short of losing their job, if they take something home, how are you really going to impart on them how important this is for your organization as a whole?
I guess the worst you can do, and the best you can do, if you really want to protect yourself to the max, is to use the discovery methods that we have to detect data that should not be in a certain place, And then you have to spy on everyone. So great privacy,
So there goes
I don't know what
privacy.
to say. It's like,
Challenge accepted.